Hi, everyone. Welcome to my discussion for this week. I'm just going to jump right into it because there's a lot to unpack here. But I first did want to say thank you to Carlos for sharing such a vulnerable and emotional story with us, and especially putting it out there for us to dissect. That's very admirable, and I really appreciate it. Um, anyway, I'll get right into it. First question. In what ways did fear influence Carlos's actions and decisions? It was he describes it as the fear of watching his mom wither away. It caused him to disconnect from his family and kind of sit on the peripheral. Instead of using that fear as an invitation to make the most of the time he had left with his mom, it likely caused him to avoid it, almost like sweeping it under the rug or under the carpet. Sometimes we kind of believe that if a problem isn't in our immediate vicinity, that it either doesn't exist or it'll solve itself or it puts it on pause. Um, which kind of bleeds into my answer for the next question, which is how do you think fear of confrontation or rejection influences people in conflict? I can tell you from experience that when I'm afraid of confrontation or rejection, I also will disconnect, kind of in this superstitious way of thinking that the problem will either disappear or resolve itself if I ignore it. So, which, that couldn't be further from the truth. It needs our attention and it needs us to be, attack it with the ambition of making it go away. Or, yeah. Um, so, for the next one, what were some of the unintended consequences of my silence and distance? Some of the unintended consequences of Carlos's distance and silence were not only him missing out on his mom or his final moments with his mom, but it also forced silence and distance upon his wife and children. Um, so yeah, it wasn't just his problem anymore. It wasn't the consequences weren't only affecting him, but it was also affecting his family and probably also his sisters who, even though he did feel they were being controlling, they probably also felt alone in it, and that they were dealing with everything. Um, why do people often realize the impact of unspoken words too late? This one was a really good one. Um, People often realize the impact of unspoken words too late because the problem isn't in front of them. Um, when someone avoids or compartmentalizes a problem, um, the consequences don't really touch them, uh, until we either give it focus again or until the problem becomes or the issue like develops into something that's too great for us to handle. It's just become too big of an issue for it to be ignored, and that's why we usually don't realize it until it's too late. Is because yeah, it's either not in front of us, we're either compartmentalizing it, or it kind of breaks free out of its cage. So yeah, for the next one, the ripple effect. How does unresolved conflict within a family affect future generations? Um, yeah, so especially when a child is, you know, they're young and their mind is still developing. Um, the way that parents and other adult figures confront conflict, it teaches these children how to deal with that conflict. It becomes a standard for how they should handle different levels of conflict. Um, so, if I were to avoid a problem and if I had children and I were to avoid a problem, it kind of passes it down to my child. And now they have a choice to either solve it themselves or most likely they're going to pass it down to their children. They're also going to avoid it because that's what they've seen from me. That's how I handled the issue. So, um, yeah, healing and reconnection. How can people take the first step toward reconciliation after years of distance? Um, it starts with honesty. In order to make amends with other people, you need to get to the root of the problem, like Carlos did. He identified, at first, he identified the cause of his problem as his sister's being, or his younger sister being too controlling. Um, but he wasn't actually able to confront the issue or the conflict until he got to the root of the problem, which was him being afraid of his mother withering away. Um, so, yeah, I think the best way to reconnect and make those amends is we need to be honest with ourselves first, and um, yeah, find the root of, or what's actually causing us to sever a relationship. Then we can actually make true and authentic amends. So sorry this was so long, and thank you guys so much for listening.